Good afternoon, class, and welcome back to another session here as we study English grammar and phonology. Today we're going to begin our studies of phonology. We're going to look at some of the basic concepts. We'll look at some of the locations, lots of new vocabulary. But believe me, this is going to be a far sight easier than having to deal with linguistics and tree diagramming. We've about 2 weeks left here in our little series, and I hope if you do have questions or problems, you do ask. Let's jump right into our basic concepts of phonology. Phonology, what is it? Phonology, and if you know a little bit about etymology, phonology, ology means the study of, and phono is sound. Phonology is the study of the sound systems. And that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the English sound system in particular, although we will be playing with the International Phonetic Alphabet. Basically, what I want to show you is how we identify sounds and how we represent them so that we can write them down. If you look at a dictionary, you oftentimes see the pronunciation scheme somewhere written. Typically, it now uses the International Phonetic Alphabet to do that. But that's phonology, the study of sounds, the study of the sounds of language. Now, a phoneme is similar to a morpheme. If you remember what a morpheme was, it was the smallest meaningful unit in written form. Okay, a phoneme is the smallest meaningful unit of sound. Okay, that carries some sort of meaning, like the k in cat or hat or fat or mat. Right, those would all be one of those things. A grapheme is a letter. A diagraph is two letters combined to make one sound. For example, we have the f sound. Right, we have the f sound, so I can write it as an f. But I can also write it as a PH. And either one of those is going to work. So, this doesn't look too pretty, so I'm going to change this color scheme here real quick. Use a custom color. I guess it would be this one here, because that's pretty ugly. Let's use this instead. Oh, that's for highlighting. Well, I guess we can use highlighting. But I really do not like that color. Not at all. So a phoneme is notes color. Let's make the notes color white. How about that? That'll work. That's better, even though it's not exactly what I was looking for. Okay, so let's jump back to here. We can look at the two of these, right? We can have the F or the PH, and both of them have the F sound. The F, of course, is making the sound with one grapheme. PH is using two graphemes, or a digraph. Okay, that's what a digraph is. We understand the difference? I hope you do. Here we go, and we're going to move on. So we have phonology, phoneme, grapheme, and a digraph. Those are four things that you're going to want to know. Let's move on to the more fun stuff. If we go to the International Phonetic Alphabet, we can see this nice long link here that brings us to the IPA. Let's go take a look at the IPA. The International Phonetic Alphabet tells you about the sound structures that we have and how they work. And basically, you're going to need to know all these words here up at the top. Let me use this instead. You're going to need to know what all these words are. Okay? Not all of them, actually, but many of them. You're going to need to know what most of these are. Okay? Now, we'll run through them as we go. Not all of them are exactly the same that I use, but some of these you should understand. We have a bilabial, bi meaning two, labial meaning lips. Sounds that are made with the lips. And we have B and P. So we have the B sound and the P sound. That's called a plosive, or another word for it is a stop, because we're stopping the air. When we do a P, we're stopping the air. When we do a B, we're stopping the air. So you see how we're taking that sound and we're holding it back because we're holding it with our lips. So it's a stop or a plosive because it explodes. The sound explodes out of your mouth. Okay? Again, we're now at the bilabial nasal, which is mm. We put our lips together and then we go through the nose, right? We have a trill, which we're not going to use. Oh, not to worry about that. We have fricatives, right? B and G, we're not going to use these, so let's go on. Labial dental, and that's where we have two sounds together, right? Right? We have a lip and teeth together. Right? Again, we don't normally use that here. Let's continue to go on. So labiodental is lips and teeth. Labiodental. Then we have straight dental, just using our teeth and probably our tongues. And these two we do use. Okay? We use this one here is TH without voice. So it's like th. The thing, thick, okay, without any voice. The one next to it is the same location, only voice. Okay? So that's this, these, that. Same location, but it's using voice. You'll note that P over here is voiceless. P, p, right? If we add voice to it, we then get B. 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 Same location. The only difference is one is voiced and one isn't voiced. If we go over to the alveolar, same thing. We have the T sound. Now the alveolar is the ridge right behind your teeth. There's a little ridge as it goes up. Right behind there, you put your tongue and you go T, T, T. No voice, that's a T. When you add voice to it, D. Same location, only now we add voice. So now we have P, B, M, we have N, which is voiced on that ridge. We put our tongue, N. We have an R, which is trilled. We don't use that in our language, so we're probably not going to use that. But we have th, the, sh, j, same location, sh. That's a fricative. A fricative is when the sound is allowed to squeeze through. Sh, okay, sh and zh. One is voiced and one is not voiced. Sh and zh. You see the difference between the two, right? We have the reflexives that are here, which is the R that's bent up. That's really what this is, our R here, or our flap. Okay, we have velar, things going into the back here. Some of these sounds we're not going to use. Like, we don't use many of these sounds here as far as the palatal is concerned. We do use velar. Palatal is right up at the top of the mouth. Okay, maybe some might do a la there if they put their tongue way back, but I don't think most people do. Most people are going to be using the la here, right? These approximants, or the lateral approximants, right? That's going to be the R and the L. Let's go back up here to the velar. We use these sounds, the k and the g. That's at the end of the palatal loop, in the back. Okay, that's where these are, k and g. K and g, q and g, g. They're further back. They're in the uvula. Remember what the uvula is? That's a little ball-hanging thing at the back of your mouth. That's what the uvula is. So these are all the sounds I'm thinking of right now that we actually use. P, B, D, M, F and V, right? We use F and V, Th and the, Sh and J, Ch, where's Ch? That's back here. We don't use many more. Here are the L and R's, right? Whoops. The L and R's that we use. Where's a glide? I don't see any glides here. They're somewhere else. We use NG in the velar, and ch and j, post-alveolar, alveolar. I believe it's the reflexive palate of the ch and j. I don't see where those are. Now, those are the main ones that we're using, okay? Let's go back and look at what we're doing here. You're going to want to know, though. You're going to have to know them because you're going to have to be able to spell with them. There are other things here that we're not going to play with. We're not going to play with some other sounds because they're not ours. We're not going to play with diacritics. Diacritics are these little things that you put underneath or put around them, and they try to tell you a little bit more about how the language is created. We're not going to play with those. We will play with vowels. You need to imagine that this little what is this? Polyglon is like your mouth. And your nose would be like right here. Okay? Maybe your eyes are here, and this is your mouth. Okay? This is your mouth cavity. And all in here are the sounds that you make. Alright? And so the ones that are way up front are way high. That's where that sound is. E, and ah. Alright, they're all up front. And then you've got sounds in the back, which we don't use much. Ooh, it's way in the back. If you can feel it when you go ooh, your tongue is way up in the back, and that's where the sound is being made. If you're down in this area here, it's more like oh, it's way in the back. It's not ee, oh. You can hear the difference. Ee, oh. Okay, and the lower you go, of course, right? It's not height that I'm talking about. It's talking about where the tongue is going and where the sound is actually being created. One more thing you should know, this sound is most important. This upside down backward E is called the schwa. It is the most common sound in the English language. It's the sound you use when you don't use any muscles, okay? When you go like this, and you say, yeah, that's a schwa. Umbrella, right? Not umbrella, no muscles, umbrella. Okay? Understand? That's the schwa. All right? There are other things here that you can look at, but those are the main ones that we're going to be looking at. Let's go back to our charts here. That's the IPA. You'll want to get to look at it so that it'll help you understand. Now, we talked about some of these things before. We have the lips, which is also called the bilabial. You've got the teeth here, which is also called the dental. Right here are the teeth. You have this ridge here, which is the alveoli. This little ridge right behind the teeth. Okay, I'll get another picture next time. It'll look a little better. You've got this palate here. You've got your uvula in the back. You have this big ugly thing right here is your tongue. And you use your tongue to make sounds. Some languages use all of these materials down here to make sounds. We don't, and so they're not going to be anywhere on a test. We'll use the alveolar ridge. We'll use the nasal cavity. We don't call it anything. We just pass sound. We just pass sound through it. We use our lips and our teeth, and our alveolar ridge, and the velar region, right, or which is the back end of the alveolar, alveoli. All right, so again, we'll get a better picture of that next time, but you're going to need to want to know what those words are. You're going to need to want to know what these are, right? As I was just trying to mention, the bilabial, the dental, the alveolar, the palatal and the velar, and the uvular. The other ones you're not going to need because we don't have them in our language. Okay. Let's talk about some other things. An allophone. An allophone is a single pronoun, a single phoneme that is pronounced differently depending on its surroundings, okay? And I believe the example in the textbook was something like ABLE and IBLE, right? Word that's, whoops, escape. A word that begins, ABLE, and then another word that might begin, or that has the IBLE. They're basically the same sounds, but they're just pronounced differently because of the scenario that it's in. Okay? I often like to look at the sound like writ. Right? If I say a writ, which is basically a document that you have to, that's oftentimes used in courts, it's writ, R-I-T, writ. Nope, this actually isn't going to work. Ride. How about ride? Ride will work. Okay? And it's R-I-D-E, and the D has a... That's not going to work. I'm not having a good time here. Okay, lit. There we go. Lit'll work. Lit. L-I-T. And the T is what? T. It has no sound, right? It's just T. But if I put in D-T-T, then lit, it doesn't become litter. It becomes litter. The T's convert to D's when you pronounce them, right? I can say, oh, I lit a fire. But if I'm talking about litter, all of a sudden the T's become D's. They're allophones, okay? The sounds change even though they're actually not changing. It's because of the environment that it's in. And that would be an allophone. And there are some examples that are there. Minimal pairs are simply sets of words that are exactly the same except for one sound. If you remember looking back here, we had cat, hat, fat, mat. All those would be minimal pairs. The only difference between these is the first sound. So cat and hat are minimal pairs. Hat and fat are minimal pairs. And it's an excellent way to learn language if you can understand how to use minimal pairs. So for example, I know that when I'm teaching overseas, I have students who cannot hear the difference between ear and year. And so what I do is oftentimes I make this type of a scenario where I hold up, I say a word. I'm going to say either ear or year, and the students have to be able to hear the difference. Now, I'm assuming you can hear the difference between ear and year, okay, but my students can't hear that. It's a minimal pair, and it's a great way to teach the difference. So I would stand up front and I would say, ear. And all of my students would have to be out there and they'd have to hold up a 1, or they're going to hold up a 2, okay, depending on which sound I make. And if they all get it right, you know, then I'll say it again, and then I'll say it again, and then I'll switch to year so that they can try to hear the difference. It's an excellent way to try to teach the difference when you have a minimal pair. Now, the change in the minimal pair doesn't always have to be at the beginning. It could be in the middle, it could be at the end. But you can use minimal pairs in order to help people learn language, okay? Another aspect of language, as I tried to mention before, are the things like voiced and non-voiced. Excuse me. Voiced includes voice from the throat. So, for example, the B in boy is voiced. B in, the B in boy is voiced. The V in V is voiced. P is the same thing as B, only it doesn't have a voice. So another aspect of language is whether it's voiced or not voiced. Okay? B is a voiced bilabial. Does that make sense? It's a voiced bilabial. V is a voiced fricative. Okay? Is a voiced fricative. P is a non-voiced bilabial. Hope you're catching this. Okay? Anybody know what F is? Tell me on the boards. Another aspect beyond voiced is aspiration. And aspiration is basically air. Okay? I could hold up a piece of paper or a tissue here, and I would say P, P, and you'd see the paper move. Because in English, when we say the P sound or the B sound, we add a lot of air to it. Okay? It's aspirated. Now, if I'm in a Latin-speaking language, and I say B, paper, I got no air. Paper, paper, because it's a non-aspirated P. In other words, they go P, and they don't after it. There's no bunch of air out. Whereas we do that. Paper, we throw out all this air afterwards. Our P is aspirated. Our non-voiced bilabial is aspirated. The Spanish bilabial, non-voiced bilabial is non-aspirated. We get the difference? I hope you do. If you have any questions, please ask. Paper is a very good example. All right, last thing in, I believe in this appendix is the idea of awareness and how people can be phonologically or phonemically aware. Someone who has phonological awareness is their ability to discern the structure of a word. They can separate the syllables out and they can tell where a phoneme begins and ends. Now, for all of us, we're like, what does that mean? If you've learned a second language, sometimes you'll walk in and that's all you'll hear is psh, and you don't know where a sound, a word begins or ends. Okay? For example, if you're a native English speaker and you happen to speak Spanish, walk into a Chinese classroom. I dare you to walk into the Chinese classroom and that's all you're going to hear. And you're not going to know where's the beginning of a word, where's the end of a word. You're not going to know. You're not going to have phonological awareness, at least not right away. Now, the longer you're there and the longer you start learning about words and phrase, all of a sudden you're just going to have this new awareness. You're going to have the ability to be able to notice the difference. Phonemic awareness is the ability to discern sounds of spoken language and connect them to grapheme. So not only can you recognize, oh, that's an English sound, but I know how to represent that sound in written form. Okay? phonemic awareness. I'm able to recognize that it's a sound, and I'm able to recognize that that sound, I know how to write that sound down. It's very fun if you know a second language. Let's say you, for example, you know French, and you go and live in France, and you're living in France, and you're on the train, and you're listening to all this French around you, and all of a sudden some foreigner, some English-speaking foreigner is on the other end of the train, and they're speaking English, and immediately, bing, you have phonological awareness. You immediately recognize, ah, that's a different language. And even though it's far away, your ears can pick it up very quickly. And I know I've done that while I was in Japan. I may be on the train, and I'm far away from these people, but because they're speaking English and not Japanese, which is the language that's all around me, I can pick it up right away, because it's my first language. Phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. All right, let's take a quick look at the terms that were in the appendix here. You should make sure that you know them. An allophone. Okay, it's the same sound that sounds a little different because of the environment that it's in. We have a consonant, right, which is everything but the vowels, right? C, D, F, that kind of thing. A digraph, two graphemes that combine to make one sound, right? A grapheme is sound represented in some type of written form. A homophone, two sounds that are written differently, right? The IPA we've talked about, minimal pairs, okay? Only one sound difference. A morpheme, okay? Not the drugs that you take when you're in tremendous pain, right? But a morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit, right? Phoneme is the smallest sound unit that has meaning, right? Phonemic we've talked about. The phonemic alphabet or the phonetic awareness, we've also looked at those. The phonetic alphabet and the phonemic alphabet, for all intents and purposes, are going to be the same for us. We will look at phonics a little more next time. I talked about the schwa, right? The most important sound in the English language because it is the most popular, right? The schwa. Voiced and unvoiced and vowels. If you do have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you again soon.